Okay, it looks like we're ready. So I'd like to invite everybody to close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. So we are going to continue on our journey with the hero of the dream. And we've been kind of going through this section for a number of weeks now. And I think what we'll do is we will start on, let's see what page it would have been. Somewhere about 586, somewhere around there. And it would be in chapter 27, section 8, paragraph number 8 is where we're going to start. Everybody find the place if they're interested. All right, so the first line says, okay, I'm just going to read the first line. The world that demonstrates an ancient truth, you will believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them. And that's the setup of this whole program. When we chose to separate from the love of God and we accepted the ego and we had that guilt, sin, and fear in our mind, we then projected that guilt, sin, and fear out into the world, or it could say into the dream. And we now make all the things in the dream the problem, and I the innocent victim. So when it says the world that demonstrates an ancient truth, you will believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them. Well, what we think we did was kill off God to exist. So kill or be killed is the, I guess you could say, the foundation of this thought system. And I'm going to quickly turn to workbook lesson 181. And I'm just going to read a line or two so you don't have to bother going in there. But it says, when you attack a brother, you proclaim that he is limited by what you have perceived in him. So when we attack a brother, and an attack can be a physical attack, I could punch somebody, but an attack can also be simply seeing your brother through a lens of disagreement. You know, I don't like the way you look, or I don't like who you are, or any of those kinds of things are actually forms of attack. And whenever you attack a brother, you proclaim his limitedness. So we see our brother as limit, just like we see ourselves as limit. And when I see my brother as limit, I'm not seeing him clearly. I'm seeing, you know, the Halloween costume. I'm seeing the character that I put in the dream that I now call him, which of course is made from my belief system of kill or be killed, guilt, sin, and fear, which I then project onto my brother. So it goes on to say, you do not look beyond his errors. In other words, I look at the error because I've chosen to see him through the eyes of error so that I can make somebody else the problem and me appear to be an innocent victim. And that's not just to him, but to myself. When this thought system got set up that way, that's the result that transpired. Rather, you do not look beyond his errors. Rather, they are magnified, becoming blocks to your awareness of the self that lies beyond your own mistake and past his seeming sins as well as yours. So we now focus all our energy on the world, on the problems of the world, whether it's a person or an experience in the world, and we blame it on that, and we keep focused on that. And I sometimes call the dream like a bubble. We are all encompassed in the concept of the bubble, and we don't remember that there was a choice that caused the effect that we see in the bubble. And so we just focus all our time and energy and are trying to fix what's going on within the concept of the bubble. And the answer can't be found in the bubble. The bubble is an effect. So we need to go back to the cause, which Jesus is constantly trying to remind us. We've got to go back to the cause if any type of real healing is ever going to be accomplished. And be very aware, we're very addicted to this character called me, the hero of the dream. I'm very addicted to responding to the world as though the world was real. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We're all wrapped in that pretty tight. And yet, he's constantly trying to remind us, no matter how solid, no matter how real, no matter how important the illusion appears to be, it is literally part of the dream that was made up so we would stay in this and stay mindless.
So Marianne,
Yes.
is my lamp, the lamp that I'm looking at, my brother?
The lamp? Well,
yeah,
okay.
It's separation, right? All I'm seeing is separation.
Correct.
I mean, my five senses is going to tell me separation, right?
Correct.
It's
yes.
real, but
absolutely.
But it's not real. So the lamp is my brother?
Yeah, and actually, Jesus, there's a couple places in the Course where Jesus would say, you know, bring all your wounds, bring all your problems to the lamp, and we will shine a light on what we've accepted as reality. And then that will, you know, dissipate the connection of the illusion, and then we will see more clearly. So I don't know if I exactly answered the question as you asked it, but did that help?
A little bit. I mean,
yeah.
anything my eye lands on is separation, right?
Absolutely. Everything.
So that's also, if it's separation, that's also my brother.
Yes, because in oneness there is no brother.
There is no brother.
Right. Correct. And again, the brother was all made up to keep us, I guess you could say, occupied or busy within the world.
So do you just sit there and say this lamp is not real? You know, because it's...
Well, no, I would say start with, I do believe my brother is real. I not only believe he's real, I think, you know, at this point in time, he did something I don't like. I believe that's real. You know, the conversation would be over if we knew who we were and who our brother was. There wouldn't be a conversation. We start with, you know, somebody did me wrong. Somebody said something to me I didn't like. Whatever slight irritation comes up or major irritation that comes up, recognize that's telling me I don't believe the light. I believe the darkness and the solidness of the illusion. So we start with that and then step back to, all right, if this is here, that has to mean I must have chosen for my ego instead of oneness. And then we can backtrack from there and question or ask the Holy Spirit to show you what is truth then. And I know, again, as I mentioned last week, this is not an instant process. You know, again, we're very used to turning on the button and the TV turns on, or you push down the toaster and the toaster gets popped out. But this is a process where literally every time we're doing that, we are investing in truth, and we're no longer investing in the darkness of the illusion. And though it doesn't automatically flip over, I guess, for a lack of a better way to put it, to what I think the answer should look like, it's literally healing our minds that are invested in the belief of the ego. And, you know, like Helene mentioned last week, she was going through a situation with a brother, and she never even asked for help, but a response or an experience of grace where suddenly that she just dropped all that connection to whatever that was going on. And that's really a result of how, when we keep doing this, eventually what's the word I want to use? The attachment to the ego starts falling away. But what we normally are doing is, I got a problem in the world. I'm going to ask the Holy Spirit And then I want the problem to be solved in the world. Well, that's not what we're even healing. But obviously, as humans in the world who are experiencing difficulty, that's kind of what we want to happen. And Jesus basically says, don't bring me into the world. Take yourself out of the world, and then you will find the real answer to what healing looks like. But we have to start with where we are, which is where we are. Can't pretend ourselves out of where we think we are.
Marianne?
Yes.
In regards to inanimate objects,
Yes.
what I have had some experience with is the awareness of how I treat whatever it is. Because I think I shared with the group when we were going to Unity about the microwave.
Right. Yes.
But how I treat something is telling me what teacher I've chosen to listen to.
Absolutely.
So if I'm slamming the door or, whatever it is, that's telling me, what teacher I chose. It's just another way of letting me know what, what I am listening to. And then the other thing I like to look at is, I think I know what a lamp is for.
Yes.
I have no, what is it? It's lesson.
Right at the beginning there's
nothing I see in this room means anything. I think I know what a lamp is, and I think I know what it's for.
Yes.
And I have no clue.
Absolutely. And I think that's why Jesus started the lessons that way, because he really wants to introduce us to the understanding you don't know anything because you're living in this bubble. In the bubble, there is nothing that's real. The Course talks about you really can't see or hear or feel. None of those things are even real. Well, I live in this body that the only story I know and the story it tells me has to do with this body and the relationship with all the things in the world. And we've accepted those as our reality. And he says, where can I begin? Because how can I tell you in the middle of this how this is, other than one step at a time? And there is actually a reference to in the Course about the allegory of the cave. I'm sure most of you are aware of that story, where all these people live in this cave and they're tied up, and all they can see is a shadow on the wall, which is a shadow of the people outside of the cave that are walking around having a life. And finally, one of the individuals in the cave escapes and then comes back to try to help the people in the cave to come out, because it's a horrible experience that they're having. Well, that he can tell them all the beautiful, wonderful things that are occurring outside, but when we're addicted to what's in the cave and we're afraid to leave, it's not going to happen. So he very gently tries, Jesus very gently tries to help us introduce a way to looking at things a little bit differently, kind of askew, because we're so focused on seeing things the way we see them. But he's not doing that to make us be uncomfortable. Obviously the couple first lessons, nothing in this room means anything. Well, how can you read that and be like comforted? Because you can't. And yet he's really introducing those, because in truth, nothing in the dream means anything. Obviously, when I'm in the dream, it does appear to be very important, very solid in who I think I am, for that matter. But he's trying to help lead us from that solidness and investment that we have in the dream. And again, even when we're having the little willingness, when we're in the midst of something, like with your microwave, Rose, you became aware of, the way I slammed that door. That wasn't coming from love. Is that who I want to still continue to be in this world? And oftentimes we can't really tell what we're aligned with until we have a moment like that where we can observe ourselves and think, oh my gosh, I'm attacking a door. I mean, that's crazy. And then if you filter that into the concept of, I walk around thinking I'm a pretty nice person in the world and I'm love and I can understand why all this stuff is happening around me. Then you realize I'm not so loving as I thought I was. And that's when, you know, when you're ready, that you can start to approach things from a little different place and do your best not to judge yourself when you recognize I just slammed that door, but definitely look at it, observe it, become aware of, oh, wow, look at how much pent up anger or frustration or whatever word you want to put to that are really churning within me. Am I that really gentle, loving character that just responds out of love all the time? Or am I this ranting, raving, crazy person? And when you can recognize that's where I'm coming from, that's the door that can begin to open to healing, because I'm no longer denying what I'm really experiencing. I'm recognizing, oh, this is the character of kill or be killed acting out in the world. And we all as egos, you know, this list over here, it's not a pretty list. That's what the ego is made out of. Why would we be surprised when we act out of that? But most of our lives, we've been thinking we were nice little people, and when any of those popped up, we try to push it down as quickly as possible instead of recognize, well, of course, if I'm an ego, that's what it's going to look like. And observe it, but don't judge it or condemn it. Because the way this is set up, and it's extremely, extremely sneaky, is it's set up where I project all the guilt, sin, and fear in something outside of myself. I play the part of an innocent victim. They act out. Then I judge them or attack them. And then I feel guilty, which just recycles the guilt, sin, and fear over and over and over. When I can step up here, observe myself relating to other egos in the world, all coming from this, and just simply observe it like a play or a movie going on the screen, but stay over here and not judge the character that we so often identify with, and simply recognize this is the play or this is the movie that was set up out of the storyline of the separated experience. But if I can observe it without judging it, I'm not making it real, and I'm not feeding into the recycle bin of guilt, sin, and fear. So I'm either here observing or I'm here responding. Doesn't seem like a whole lot's been accomplished when that happens, but it's absolutely, actually very huge when that can take place.
Marianne?
Yes.
I have been aware of a lot of resistance lately. I don't want to have anything to do with the course. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to read the book. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do much of anything at all. And I noticed that. And this morning, I felt like I was drowning in it. You know, it was kind of up to this level. And of course, associated with that is all of the guilt and unworthiness and self-hate that we may be familiar with. And what happened as I started to verbalize, you know, some of this was, you know, more kept coming out and more kept coming out. And I have a visualization that I work with where I'm just, you know, laying it on the altar. And I didn't start, you know, with that this morning. But, you know, I have the guilt, and I said, okay, here, have the guilt. And then I hear the ego going, oh yeah, that's good. And I say, and I'm recognizing that, and I put that on the altar, and I keep doing it and doing it and doing it until there's nothing left.
Right.
And until I have like disappeared and said, that's all I got. That's all I've got. And I give up.
There it is, right there. There it is. Yeah, yeah. And we can attempt to go to the altar with our pockets filled, but we're really not on the altar yet. It's only when we put it all on the altar, we're empty. that's where the real magic happens, because I'm no longer trying to figure it out, defending it, any of that. I'm I give up. Here I am. And I always think of the image in the portrayal of Jesus dying on the cross where Judas washed his hands, and it was like, okay, you guys take over. And we have to come to that place, and we can think we've come to that place many times, but whenever it really comes to that place, then it's like we're empty. Now you can fill me up. Or I think it's a Zen kind of thing where they have the teacher or the student come to the teacher, and the student's cup is full, and the teacher tries to pour more tea in, and it just falls all over. Well, that's kind of where we come from. And you have to dump out everything you think you know so that that cup can be filled with a new.
I got nothing.
Yeah. Or even in the Bible, it talked about you can't put new wine in old skins. I would guess there's probably a similar parallel. I'm not sure exactly, but of that kind of idea. We can't, and it's a tricky thing, because every single person in this room or in this group, we came into the course with stuff, whether it's spiritual or religious, or our concepts, our beliefs, our prejudices, our attachment to the body. We're not very empty. We're pretty full. And as the hero of the dream, that's what makes my identity. That's a great value for me. And scraping off the layers of the attachment that I think is me takes some practice. But when we can come to that place where we really can come with those, totally, I don't know, that's when it can slip in there and really feed us. Anyone else?
Marianne.
Yes.
And something I was just listening to Ken remind us is that, and we cannot skip over steps. We have to look at these things, and looking at what is, what you were saying earlier, what stands between us and our brother. And he talked the importance of psychoanalysts, if it may, or something to look at. It's not just about reading a book, and on a practical, you're not going to let go of anything that you think, that we still hold value to.
Yeah, and the tricky thing is we don't even know we're holding on to most of this stuff. It's so deeply seated in our psyche that it's like, I know I don't like somebody or whatever, and we can work on that. But I don't know the investment I have in the belief system that I hold until someone crosses the line. And that's when the ugly comes out. And we really need to look at those specific moments in your life when the ugly comes out. Those are the hooks that are really holding each one of us in our own individual way to some concept that I'm holding on to dearly. And, it can be something as simple as someone looks at you and said, oh, you gained a few pounds. Well, look at that hook, because that's already what you believe. And even if they might say something you don't realize you have a hook on, but if you have an effect or a reaction that comes up, you have a hook. And those are the places we really need to dig into deeper, because they're telling us where my work is.
I wanted to share the potato story. You think,
Yeah,
Rose?
go for it, sure.
I'm in Whole Foods and
Yes.
the potato. I'm in Whole Foods and I'm, making moves. I got a list and something. I stop at the broccoli stand, get some broccoli, and okay, yeah, sweet potatoes. And I go around sweet potatoes, and there's a young guy there, and I somehow it identified him as a millennial, and he has on gloves.
Gotta have a name, right?
And he's all cool and the jet setter, and he has on gloves, and on top of the gloves he has those gloves, another pair of gloves, the cut off ones, so plastic ones under that, and he's squeezing every potato. And I'm like, what the? He's touching with gloves, you know, all these, the story, and just in attack mode, you know, what the, off with his, touching every potato, what the, and I'm wondering, what, you know, my goodness, you know, and then he gets behind me in line, and I mean, really, I'm ready to jump on him. Why did you have to put your hand on every potato? Don't you know it's a, you know, going on and blah, blah. And I was talking to Rose about it, and something Ken had said, she reminded me about how, you know, if you slow things down and catching with that, help me, Rose.
It's the self-judgment before the projection.
If,
Right.
so I'm, what had happened, then I recalled that I was buying broccoli and breaking the stalk, making these like flowerlets, and thinking, this is wrong, really, you know. This is, you know, boy, I'm really, you know, they're losing money, and this is wrong, and I hope no one sees me, and the potato man, looky.
Yes. And
Looky. He's wrong.
yes, not me.
Not me.
Yes.
I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes.
You're never upset
for the
for the
reason.
reason you think.
Yes. And Ken would well, not Ken, but the Course says, Ken would say it, but the Course speaks of the idea of, we had the thought of separation, and then we find something. It doesn't matter if it's
Right.
the cup or the potato man or something or someone. We hone in on that and say, if it wasn't for this, I could be at peace. But the reason why I hone on this, and we can pick anything on this chart, is because I want that to be the problem, not me. And that's the whole setup of this whole process that we're constantly going through. But the way the world is set up, the solidity of the world, it appears one of these things is it. Because, you know, I was fine until I walked into the store. Well, you really weren't fine before you walked in the store, but we play that kind of game as we're going through this process. And to really understand if something like that really upsets you, or maybe you turn on the TV and there's a program about rape and you just get totally enmeshed in that experience, and we each have our own specific hooks. Really examine, what's the deal with this one? Because we all rape things. We may not rape another person per se, but we rape in other forms. And we need to become aware of, how does that image, whatever that image is, and we can take the cup again, that image, what does that represent within me that I'm not aware of, that I'm holding on to dearly and playing out that part? And sometimes we have to keep putting it out there and keep asking. I want to come to the point where I get what that connection is so I can drop it. Because if I don't know what it is, I'm not going to be able to drop it.
And Marianne,
yeah,
I think it's also helpful to keep in mind that when you have that realization, you have the awareness that, oh my God, I was blaming myself, and then I pointed the finger at the potato man. You know, it's helpful for me to remember, as shown on your chart, both of those figures are coming from the one mind. So
right.
Whether I'm blaming you or I'm blaming me, I'm still in the ego thought system.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
That Marianne?
Yes.
That if you will look, that everything you accuse everybody else is doing is exactly what you do.
Absolutely.
And that the reason you see that in somebody else is because you don't like it in yourself.
Right.
That's with everything.
That's with absolutely everything, even if you don't connect the dots and understand that.
Right,
yes.
right.
Which is basically what this first line says. The world but demonstrates an ancient truth. You believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them. We're the ones that are holding that belief system. Then it gets projected into the world. I put all the gunk in something outside of me so I can play the part of an innocent victim. That's the setup of no matter what it looks like in the world, no matter how big or small it is, that's the setup. So if I'm pointing a finger, and I learned this years ago, if I'm pointing a finger at somebody, I got 3 or 4 pointing at me, and I really need to look at what's going on with the ones that I hold, because I wouldn't have that finger out there if I knew that it was coming from me and that got healed. And when the Course portrays the concept of Jesus dying on the cross, and his final words were, teach only love, for that is what you are. If you're aligned with this, you're coming from love, and you won't have a finger pointing at a brother, because you won't see your brother through that lens. Only in duality that you'll see through the lens of somebody else is the problem. And of course, we set it all up that way. And, there's so many things to choose from, aren't there? And so many places to practice. All right, anybody else have anything?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I was thinking when you first started talking, well, as soon as I tuned in anyway, that you know how the Course talks about the first is the world that is the mask, if you will, and then the body is the other one. But recently I've experienced really thinking about who I am, like I am this, I am this, I am this, and that is no different. I just realized as I was listening to you that is not necessarily different than picking up all those things that you have on that chart right there, whether it's, any kind of distraction. Because for me to say I am this, 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 and this, and I like this, this, and this, and this, that's still me masking or hiding in the place of the ego. Because if we're just going with the flow of it and watching, then we're not reacting and having this strong attachment to these things that make me such an individual, right? So
absolutely, right. And be very aware that the reason we chose to leave in the first place was God gave us everything. We were his son. You give your children what you have. He gave us everything. The only thing he couldn't give us was that he was the creator and we were the creator, and we wanted that too. So we decided to go off on our own and do that. And now we have a God and a me, and we get guilt, sin, and fear instead. And your comment about I, me, my, which again is the hero of the dream, is the lens we look through when we're in the separated state. Only we get so caught up in this, and again, what the Course is trying to help us understand is this is the setup. Stay in this bubble. Don't ever look outside of this bubble, and everything will be fine. We'll keep this thought system going, and we can blame it on somebody else. It's only when I can start to recognize, no, that's not really what's going on here. It's not my brother's fault, and it's not really my fault. It's the thought that set up this whole bubble. And as Rose said before, understand that this whole party, and again with the dream, the whole dream came from this thought system. So we point a finger at all this, all we want forever. It's never going to heal my mind until I rise above and realize what the cause is.
I feel like the more I identify with the characteristics that I deem as who I am, the more entrenched I am, and the less likely I am to actually grow or change, because I'm just locking myself into this is who I am instead of this is who I am. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's a tricky place though, because sometimes the Course literally ask us to dig deeper into the illusion. And I know there's some spiritualities out there that say, oh no, just pretend that's not there, go over there, you know, keep that over there. The Course is really saying, I want you to really look. I want you to really dig into what was set up, not to make it more real, but to become aware of what the setup is all about. Like taking a magnifying glass if you're a private investigator. Let's say you investigate serial murderers, okay? Well, you want to really get in there and figure out what a serial murder is all about and get in their head and figure out all the details so that whenever you start to look later, you become aware of all the intricate ways that I play this part. And then you can look at them and kind of smile at them, not take them quite so seriously. But if you avoid looking at them, they can be sitting there and you'll kind of walk by them like with what are those things with the horses?
Blinders.
Blinders, right. And we pretend our way through the world instead of really use every aspect of the world to really understand what the setup is and what the setup is bringing to me. And, even with your idea of becoming aware of the good things about me and the bad things about me, when I become aware of, okay, so that's just another way I am playing in the world. And that's not good or bad within the context of the world. But if you really want to begin to heal and understand the dynamics of what healing require, then you begin to observe the character from here instead of play the character. And that's so important because I'm either here responding and reacting as though I was the character, or you're observing the character. And literally the observing of the character gives less power to this. And when you're observing, you're literally over on this side and you're not feeding into this. So the more time we're observing, the less time we're giving to investing more powerfully into the thought system of the ego.
That Mary Ann?
Yes.
That is what I am afraid of, which seems to be quite common with me. That years ago, that I was all excited about the hi-fi and the sounds and the surround sound. And so I went out and I bought all the speakers and all the sound, and right. I listened to it and I said, wow, that really sounds great. And in 3 days, I couldn't tell the difference.
Right.
And I'm afraid that's the same thing will happen when I go back to God, that I'll say when I'm there a short time, figure, what's the big deal here?
I don't think that's really what you're afraid of, Bob. But I understand what you're saying.
You see, we get kind of used to things.
Well, there's no question.
And afterwards think, well, what's really so great about this? What I used to think was great turns out to be not so great.
Well, but I think if you
get used to it.
Right. I think if you look at that in the perspective of the illusion, and that's really true, how often do we, hope for the new car, and you get the new car, and there's nothing wrong with the new car. That's fun. That's enjoyable. Yay. Well, I feel better driving down the road and whatever. But that's not going to fill the hole in your heart in regard to understanding a true form of love.
But perhaps at a short time it did.
Well, for a short time it appeared to,
yes.
Sure. And it was better than before, no question about that. And that's one of the major manipulations of this bubble, because I can be in a place, move to another place, and for a time have a better experience than I had before, and think, okay, so now I got something I didn't have before. But nothing in this world will ever last. It will always deteriorate. It will always fall apart and die. And so even if for a time period, it does give the impression that it's a better experience, it comes with a fall later. And here, that's not going to happen.
Why?
Because it doesn't have an opposite. It doesn't have a positive and a negative.
Who are you listening to? Who gets bored?
Yep.
Who gets bored?
Bob does.
Ego, yes.
So, yeah.
So you're just listening to the ego. That's all an ego thought. That's all it is.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, how many, I'm sure you've all heard of people say, well, I don't want to go to heaven because they're just angels up there singing or whatever. You know, that's no fun. You know, we're looking through our limited lens trying to figure out what that experience would be. And, you know, the ego is never going to let us in on that one. We read a couple weeks ago the idea of if you took the most beautiful, wonderful experience you've ever had on the earth and multiply it 100 times 100 times 100, it won't come even an inkling close to what the true experience we'll have when we're at oneness.
That's what you got to look at.
That's what you've got to look at.
Because the sound on my speakers and that was not 100 times 100.
No, exactly.
It was only a little bit of difference.
Yes. And again, there's nothing wrong with getting new speakers or new furniture or a new car or whatever it is that, you know, floats your boat. But just as you do those, be aware that this isn't the end all, the be all. You know, yeah, it made me feel better, okay. And then, you know, for some people that means now I'm going to get a bill in the mail and that's not going to feel so good. So just be aware of how there's always a down to almost every up that we experience within the context of the dream, because it's part of duality and it's always going to have a crash on the end.
But I think that 100 times 100 kind of answers it.
All right, good.
Because the difference between the speakers and no speakers is not 100 times 100.
Right.
It's maybe 2 against 1 or something.
Yeah, Denise?
Yes. How, okay, so if it's such a dramatic difference in I want to say quality, because I will use the speaker analogy again. If it's 100 times 100 or even more, and it's this great, amazing sensation and we love it, why do we keep separating? Why do we keep separating if it's so great? Why?
That's a beautiful question to ask.
I know I'm not supposed to ask why, but I really do want to know what you guys think.
Because to embrace that requires that Denise stops being an I. It requires that Denise give up everything that she's invested on. Not that she gives it up, she gives up the investment in it. And we don't know how invested we are in this, let alone the other things of the world. When we, as the Course says, when we want peace more than anything else, we'll have it. But right now, there's way too many things, too many shiny coins calling our name. And we really don't even have an inkling of a clue of how attached we are to this character called me. And we want to be right, we want to be special, and we still want to be different. And to the degree that any of those are in place, this is what's going to run the show instead of this. And, you know, as we keep asking, especially in the moments of little willingness where we can't tolerate this any longer, this is going to start to develop. Our investment in this is going to start to grow. And then our attachment to this is just going to slowly start to dissipate. And another example of this, Denise, is let's say you were in a dark cave for 35 years. Somebody finally finds you and they're walking you out of the cave. You really don't want to go too fast, especially if it's like intensely bright sunny day, because you'll be blinded by that experience. So you walk very slowly and you gradually prepare your senses to embrace that. Well, the same thing happens with this. The reason why we don't stay here very long, because I mean, people have even shared what experiences of having a holy instant are, the reflection of that in our world. That's kind of a nice thing. Well, as you said, why would we ever want to go back to here? And, you know, I don't think I've ever used this example since you've been coming to the group, but not only that, if you think of a pile of poop.
Wait, sorry.
Okay, yeah. This is a pile of poop and this is a pile of whipped cream and you really like whipped cream a whole lot. Wouldn't we always want to come to the whipped cream? No brainer. But because of our addiction, attraction, and investment in this, that holds an appeal, but I'm not ready to go all the way with that appeal.
Oh, and also that sometimes I think that I have felt that peace, but it might not have been the peace 100 times 100, but
Right.
the peace I felt so great. I tried to keep it, and maybe I could keep it for maybe a second or two,
Yeah.
but it was so wonderful.
Yes. And the trouble with trying to keep it is
Right.
you've lost the way it came about in the first place. And it's so tempting, you know, to grasp it, keep it, and it doesn't work that way. It's, you got to let this go, and then that happens. And that part is none of our business how it happens. And when I'm clinging again, I'm back over here.
Right. My ego was trying to
Exactly.
catch it.
Exactly.
So, Marianne, do you
Yes,
have
Dick.
to kind of shut off your senses to experience
No, don't
one?
shut off your senses. Use your senses 100% now. Your senses will get shut off per se, but you're not supposed to do that. You use your senses. I'm angry, I'm pissed, I'm upset, I just stubbed my toe, I'm, you know, how dare they do that? Really start with exactly where you are.
But my senses are telling me there's a lamp in front of me,
Absolutely.
right? So I have to close my eyes at least, don't I, to say that there's not a lamp in front of me? And
You know, if you pay attention to some of the workbook lessons, Jesus will actually have us close our eyes. And he does that purposefully because he wants to show us whether I close my eyes or I have my eyes open, the thought system is intact. We have to start with where we believe we are, which is there's something in front of me. And I have to start with the experience that's going on. If I was here, I wouldn't have that experience and we wouldn't have to talk about this. So I start with where I'm experiencing life, recognize that the only reason this is here is because I want it to be here. You know, this represents my security blanket if I'm too afraid to come over here, literally. And I am too afraid to go over here because it means there's no me. And I invest a great deal of time, effort, and energy into being a me. And so look at all the ways I invest in being a me and how I want to be special and how I want to be in control and how I don't want my brother off the hook. You know, how many of you want to go? Let's say we could all go to heaven today. Who would you let in? Would you let Saddam Hussein in? Would you let Hitler in too? Or do you want to go over here? Just, you know, because you've been pretty good and a lot better than they were. You know, are you ready for everybody to go over here? And the answer is no, guys. First of all, we're afraid to go ourselves, and we certainly don't want to bring everybody else with us. But I'll be first in line, and we're going to leave them back there. Well, you see, there isn't another. There's only a one, and I have to drop anything that has to do with duality or more than oneness in order to walk in the door over here. Because my brother is Saddam Hussein or Hitler or the worst person or the most hated person in your life.
So are you saying that we don't turn off our senses?
Do not turn off your senses. The Course is very specific near the very beginning where it says, basically, use your body for a classroom. Because your classroom is going to tell you when you've lost your peace. Your brother is going to help you find out when your peace can be lost because he's going to ring your doorbell. But he or she cannot ring your doorbell unless you have a doorbell. So you use those experiences to help you realize, oh, I've lost my peace again. I think it's because this idiot said this or did this or acted this way. But the truth is, I could only have my doorbell rung if I believed this is who I am. And understand that this is a belief. It's not real even. But to the degree that I believe it's real, I'm going to have the experience of the effects of the belief that it's real. So I start with where I believe I am. And it says in this quote that I started to talk about is that don't discount the body. Ultimately, it's not real. I mean, the Course says that over and over. But we use the body to help us understand where we are at this time. Because the only way I know that I can lose my peace is if something in relationship to my body occurs that I now know I'm not there.
So I don't understand anything I see. The thing I'm most afraid of is basically, I don't know nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. And I'm having these thoughts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right in the beginning of the workbook. Nothing I see means anything.
Mm-hmm.
I've given it the meaning that it means. I don't understand. These thoughts don't mean anything. I'm not upset for the reason I think. I'm someplace in the past. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts, and I don't see that. So I take a situation, any irritation, no matter how minute, because usually, we play games and stuff. We shove stuff under the rug. Oh, that doesn't mean anything. Oh, it's okay. That doesn't bother me.
Right. We're good
Big
at that.
deal, but to take something and then take it and look at it. Look, wow, and then I see that's ain't had nothing to do with anything, and I don't know.
Right.
And for a moment, just as Helena was saying about the altar, that's the process of getting it to the altar. You got to go through it. We got to go through it. It's the unconscious.
Yes.
We're pulling away, and it feels like that. It feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For a while.
And be very aware that before you start, I'll get to Helene in a sec. Before we even start reading the workbook lessons, Jesus specifically says, you're not going to understand what these mean. It doesn't matter if you understand, just do them. And it's much like the Karate Kid thing, wax on, wax off. And the Karate Kid got frustrated with his teacher. I don't want to wax on, wax off all the time. Well, these are the beginning steps of undoing what you have established as reality that aren't true. But we're going to start with where you think you are, and then we'll walk beyond that to a deeper understanding. Okay, Helene, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think that we ever get to a place where, I guess the way I'm thinking of it lately is, I can say yes or I can say no. And that's the split mind. And Denise said earlier, here's me giving myself all of these attributes as an individual on the one hand, and me going with the flow on the other. So to me, going with the flow is opting for the Holy Spirit's side of the chart. And that means I'm just saying, yes, I don't know shit, you take over. And then there's the other side, the ego's thought system, which is always saying, no, I know what's best. I know what should happen. You're wrong. And it's either, me or you, but we're both over there on that side of the chart. If I can see that in any given moment, I recognize that I am either saying no to God or I'm saying yes to God. And that's basically what my choice is. Now, there are times, when I have to look at that no, and well, I always have to start there because that's what I got. I have a reaction to something. I have a thought about something. I have a belief. I have a feeling. I have something presumably going on in this world, but I want to get to the point where I see, oh, that's not true.
Right.
Another choice. I can make the other choice. Help me to be willing to make the other choice.
Right. But the ego's job is to pull you in here.
Exactly.
And that's its job. It's unequivocally its job. Stay here. Don't think about this, and for heaven's sakes, don't even gander over there. And be very aware. And Ken's wife she kind of coined this. When we were here and we chose this, the answer came that nothing happened. We looked at these two choices, and we already believed that we had guilt, sin, and fear, and we thought we killed off God, and he couldn't possibly love us. So we made this choice. And at that point, we mind melded with the ego. This no longer existed in our mind. I mean, it still exists, but we closed the door to the memory of this existence, and we sat in the guilt, sin, and fear. Then we projected that into the world, and then we forgot that this existed. So the whole dream concept is one big bubble that I stay here, none of this exists, and as long as I stay here, everything's under control because the ego's got me. And as I read, a couple of weeks in a row, let's see if I can find it. The purpose, and this is from Ken, the purpose is to keep us mindless, which is within the dream, by rooting us in the world of bodies. And as long as I believe I am a body at the mercy of other bodies, it will never, ever occur to me that I am a mind, which means I am now living in a perpetual state of mindlessness. So the entire illusion is mindless. There is no mind. It's just an effect of a cause of a mind that we no longer have any contact with. If I am not a mind, I cannot change. All I can be is an effect of circumstances beyond my control. If I cannot change my mind, the original decision for the ego is preserved forever. And that's what the ego's job is, to preserve our mindlessness so that we can never have to turn back and find out, we were the ones that caused this. And there's also this delightful little line in the Course that basically says that the ego, we made a pact with the ego after we chose to separate that we would never, ever, 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 ever look. Well, we're starting to look. Do you think the ego is going to be on our side, patting us on the back? Not a chance. Its job is going to keep pulling us back to this. I sometimes give the example of a rubber band. Think of having a really tough, tight rubber band. And every time we pull on that rubber band and pull ourselves over to the Holy Spirit, it's going to snap back to the original shape of the rubber band. But as we keep pulling it and snapping back and pulling and snapping back, that rubber band is going to lose some of its power. It's less elasticity. It's a funny word. And eventually, we're going to continue to pull it. And eventually, we're going to pull it, and it's going to snap, and then this will be our home. But the tightness of the rubber band at this point lives here. And again, unbeknownst to me, how deeply and how solid that is. There's places in the Course where it talks about it's a citadel. This dream, this illusion is a citadel. It's impenetrable. And believe it or not, guys, the very fact that we are even having a glimpse of an awareness of a possibility of another choice is so monumental. We have not even a clue how monumental that is. Even though the ego will say, yeah, you didn't do very good. You've got this new course. You think you're hot stuff. And I know better. And really, shifting is happening, even if the world itself has not seemingly changed. Your investment in the world will change. And as Jason's question earlier, don't disqualify the classroom. But as we keep choosing for this, this is going to be the more prevalent thought system. And this will just of its own, will start to, the attachment to it will start to fade away. And, you can use an example of, somebody that's smoked cigarettes or had been on drugs or whatever, that has finally come to a place where they're no longer attracted to the cigarettes. They don't have an appeal any longer. As long as there's even an inkling of an appeal, you still have that addiction. But eventually, you can just, it just doesn't have, there's nothing there any longer. I mean, I give the example, I became a vegetarian like 45 years ago, and I'm not telling people to become a vegetarian, but when I quit eating meat, I just stopped eating meat. And you could put a steak next to me or a picture of a steak next to me. There is absolutely no attraction, zero, of having a steak. It's done. But I stopped eating sugar at the same time, and there's still an attraction to sugar. And I stop eating sugar, and then, I can do it for a while, and then I start again. It's not done. But when it's done, there's just no attraction any longer. And that falls away of its own. We don't have to be in charge of it. In fact, we can't be in charge of it. Any other comments?
Yes. Are you Marianne? I'm sorry.
I hear two people, so
go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Denise. Could you speak about the place of miracles in making this transition or shift into spiritual consciousness? Like, I think I'm hearing something.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. It's kind of crackly. I don't know if there's anything you can do to make it.
Let me see. I'm wondering if you could speak about the place of miracles in the shift in consciousness or transition out of ego-based thought, because I think sometimes that I have to process everything, go through everything in order to, with my mind, in order to have a shift in consciousness. I don't think the Course really says that, and part of that would be having the miracles. And miracles, it says in the very, very beginning, number 19, in the chapter 1, miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the law of eternity, not of time. And so, you know, I could go through things 5 million times in my mind, but sometimes I need a miracle or an awakening to shift out of whatever mind mill trap I found myself in.
Well, what the Course is trying to help us understand is when you rise above the battleground and you observe this, you're out of time and space.
Right.
The miracle is described as a moment out of time and space where you don't exist. And so when we're observing what's going on within the context of the illusion, we're making the connection with the concept of the dream, or excuse me, not the dream, the miracle. And the miracle is happening through us when we're outside or above the battleground. And then the reflection of that can occur in our world, unbeknownst to us how that's going to present itself.
Right. So I don't think the ego personality have to go through everything, you know, sifting it off, because I don't see all in the first place. My example would be, I was just in Aldi's and they have everybody going in lines now, and so there are like 10 people in line, but one cashier, you know, 6 or 5 rows, 4 cashiers, and so someone requested another cashier. I have placed myself in another aisle, another line, and someone came from behind and said, I'm going to put myself right here. I said, oh, that's not going to work. And then they said, they didn't say anything. I didn't understand that. But when a cashier came along, that was our little miracle. The second cashier came along, she had to remove what she thought was right, and she now saw a different way. And I count on grace. I count on miracles, which I can't force to happen, but when they open up, my understanding opens up. You know, I can sit all day and think about why did I not like what my aunt said? But if I go outside, maybe I'll see somebody else being very loving, and I'll go, you know what, just forget it. You know, that was like a little miracle for me. Just forget it. I don't have to think about it for 5 years to figure out that there's another way. So.
Well, no, I mean, literally, we have this moment, you know, and as Helene said, am I choosing this or am I choosing this in any given moment? And that's always, you know, an option for us. But we have to understand why we're here and what we've invested in here to even be willing to step out of it and choose differently. And so a lot of the process of the Course is developing an understanding of what got us in this trouble in the first place, and understand that I'm not going to let go of this if I have an investment in being right, or I think I know the answer. I've closed the door to God. There's no way he's going to be able to come in here. And, you know.
Well, I like number 17. It says, miracles transcend the body. They are sudden shifts into invisibility, away from the bodily level. That is why they heal.
Yes. And again, you know, somebody actually wrote to me, the scariest line in the Course was, we will disappear into the heart of God. Well, you know what that means? That Marianne doesn't exist anymore. Well, that's pretty dang scary stuff. And so we start out this process We're spending a little time over here, and then we come back here real quick because I'm not ready to disappear into the heart of God. And so we say, I want miracles. We say, I want to be at one with God. But there is a whole lot of my investment in this belief system that's still running the show. And yet, every moment I choose for this in any given moment of willingness, that's shifting. That's making this, you know, and I give the example sometime of having a bank account. You put more, if you start to put more coins in here, when I'm putting a coin in here, I'm not putting that coin in here. And so this starts to grow. My bank account starts to grow. But we have to understand how many coins we put in this. This bank account's been fed since the beginning of time, and we've reinforced it. So one coin over here is a great start in the right direction, but we got a lot more coins before this no longer has any draw or any effect on us at all.
Well, that to me is where the miracles come in to help.
Well, but the miracle is a reflection of you choosing this. And that then reflects into the world. And it's like you have a picture window that's all blown down with mud and dirt, and you start scraping away by asking to see this differently. And a ray of light can now come forth. Well, the ray of light was always there, but we couldn't experience it. We couldn't see it because we were looking through the lens of the ego. Each time we scrape off a little more of that light can come forth. And we call it a reflection of a miracle. Well, it's really, I got some of that gunk out of the way, and now I can see what was always there. And
Well, I like.
Oh, in the I'm sorry. So in the situation like with the potatoes, the scraping is the looking and seeing, oh my goodness, look. In that moment, I became afraid, or, you know, so afraid, so invested in my beliefs about lack and fear that I just, you know, I ran to, you know, blame and go into with my old friends of fear, anxiety, this, you know, hate, instead of be there in the calm, you know, in that place that's, he said, yeah, cast there, where rather than disappear in the heart of God. Yeah. And what I saw when we were discussing it is, oh my God, all it was, I didn't understand. I did not know. I didn't know, and I got afraid.
Yes.
I could have said to that brother, is that a new way to pick potatoes? you know? But being with that gunk,
yes,
being with that, the way through, the way to it was through it. You don't throw it away.
No, don't throw it away. Examine it. And be aware we are robots that are set up to be kill or be killed. That's in our DNA. That's automatic. I don't have to work on that. I don't have to wake up in the morning and say, oh, let's see how I can be kill or be killed. That's like this. Oh, you with the potatoes. Bleh. And a gal that used to come to the course years ago, well, she pops in every once in a while, but she had this experience where she went to a gym and she would see these guys come out of the locker room and hop in the pool. She wasn't too happy because they didn't take a shower before they came into the pool. So she would get really irate seeing this. And then one day she hopped in the pool. Some guy came out of the locker room and she swam up to him frantically. Well, how dare you get in the pool without taking a shower? And the guy said, well, there's a shower in the locker room. Well, the guy never did anything wrong, but because of the limited awareness of her ability to see the whole picture, she was right there attacking him. And so often, if we understand or understood the story that went beyond or before anyone's activity or anybody's actions in the world, we would see it through a very different lens. But we can only see my little part.
Well, I understand what you're saying. And I think a lot of my own learning is from those kinds of things where I sift through. But I'm
still having a really, 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 really hard time understanding what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Let me just pick this up.
Yeah. And Denise, you have something to say. I'll let you when you're done.
That's fine. Go ahead, Judy.
I understand what you're saying, and I do learn that way a lot, you know, sifting through.
Yep.
But I also learn from just simply forgiving whatever it is. I don't have to process. I can, or if I take the example of the potato or the watermelon, when the lady came up to me and she kind of pushed my stuff away and put her watermelon there, I could have made up a story about that and gone over it later. I just let her do it. Who cares? But then I could have told her, in a few minutes, there's going to be somebody here and you're going to have to move that. But I didn't really need to do that. I just said, this is where things are. It's not my business. All will become clear. If I feel I've been slighted in some way or I'm judgmental of her in some way, I just forgive it. I don't have to figure, well, I'm judgmental of this because 5 years ago, somebody else took my watermelon. And so now watermelons trigger me. And because of that, I go into small consciousness. And I have to say a prayer in order to get out of my small consciousness. I can go through all of that. I don't have to do all that all the time.
Right.
Most of the time, I got to tell myself a story or two in order to get out of it. But not all the time. And that's why I appreciate the atonement and appreciate miracles. It says that number 25 in the front, miracles are a part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when completed is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all dimensions of time. Whether I'm thinking about it or not, it's available. Absolutely. And I don't always have to process every single thing. If I did that, I'd just be depressed. All right, but anyway.
Right, no, and I understand what you're saying, but I would be a little cautious with the idea of who's doing the forgiveness. Is it you doing the forgiveness,
That's all
or
I can do.
you getting out of the way for forgiveness to flow through?
Yeah, either way.
Well, but what I'm
better
trying to say is if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And I'm not allowing the healing process to take place. And again, it might produce an effect in the world that may be more comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But the ultimate real healing comes when I don't have an investment in it whatsoever. I don't know.
I agree totally. And I agree. And I say the same thing applies to processing. Who's doing the processing?
Well, yeah.
It's usually the ego.
Sure. Yeah. No question about that. That can be an issue as well. And the ego can pull us in. It's like Ken has a tape set called The Web of Specialness, and I think the concept of the web, we can pull in that web in so many different ways, and we can be thinking we're doing it and we're really not doing it. So yeah, I gotcha. All right, Miss Denise, did you have something else? I thought I heard you.
Yeah, just really quick. You were talking before Zita started talking. You were talking about, when you became a vegetarian, how you just dropped it because you were ready to drop it and you didn't have an investment there anymore.
Right.
Well, and can I make myself?
No, you cannot make yourself do that. Yeah, and see, that's the thing.
Can somebody else make me? Like somebody else applying force to me, make me do something or not?
Physically, yes, no question about it. But did that heal your mind? Did that bring you to a place of a shift in consciousness? No.
No, I still have the investment.
Well, yeah.
Even when I'm being exerted upon.
Yes, and then you're going to be pissed because they exerted you.
Right. See, then I'm going to blame.
Well,
right.
And then we got another layer going here. So that's how the ego plays out. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And it's really, and that's how this whole thing really begins to occur. When I keep choosing this, I'm investing in this. I'm putting my money in this bank account. And when I'm doing that, I'm not putting it in this bank account. And this will start to just fade away. But there are times when I'm ready. I'm done. That issue is over here now, and I don't have to invest in it anymore because it's fallen away already. But then watch the ones that haven't fallen away. And you gave the example of the letting it go. Why can't I just let it go? Because something within us is holding that, because that has more value than this right now. Even if I am saying to myself, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, my investment on a deep, layer, and again, I'll use the iceberg picture, here, yeah, I want to get I want to get rid of that. But down here, there's a hook that's holding me here that I'm not even aware of what's holding me, that's keeping me from letting this be what I am right now. And as we keep asking, as we keep honoring that right now, what I've got to do is eat meat or smoke a cigarette or do whatever it is that I have to do right now. And I know it's a tricky scenario because I know there's like AA programs out there where you invest in the concept of I'm not going to drink or smoke or whatever for 24 hours and the next 24 hours and whatnot. And those can be helpful steps to take you to that place. But until it shifts to here where the attraction is gone, it's still not healed. And we just got to keep on working on this process. And then one day something will just fall away. And it doesn't mean it necessarily has to be a physical thing such as cigarettes or drinking or whatever. It can just be a concept that you hold dearly to, that you've been run through your whole life with. And one day that concept just falls away and your investment is just gone. And it's a process. It's a process. It's a process. It's a process. And, the Course talks about it being a process. Ken talked about it being a process. And I think we all come to it. We finally find something that appears to have, an understanding of something beyond what we are. And I just want it. I want to take my blue book and I want to just make it be me. And it doesn't work that way because, again, it's the whipped cream. This is the poop. Unequivocally clear. But I'm so addicted to this. We have no idea how addicted we are to this. And as long as I am, it's going to run the show. Go ahead.
As Ken always says, just observe. I just observe my attachments.
Yes.
Without judgment. I'm in my right mind if I'm observing ego doing its thing and I'm not judging it.
Yes.
Because if I think I need to get rid of this attachment, I'm making the attachment real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like
so just watch. That's all you got to do.
Yes. Yes.
Or not.
Yes.
And if you can't watch, you're afraid.
Yes. Yeah. And kind of piggybacking on that, Ken said once, a good Course student is a bad Course student that's observing himself and not a judging. And, yeah. And that's so foreign to our thinking. What do you mean I just observe and that's going to heal this process? That's nuts. But it is because, as I said earlier, you're either identified with the character in the dream or you're observing the character in the dream. And I like to think of this as, if you have a hot air balloon and it's laying on the ground and you start filling it with air and it starts to poof up and poof up and poof up, but it's still tied to the ground. But eventually you untie the ropes and then it really rises above and it's floating around. Well, getting to the point where I can literally observe this without judgment is much like the description of that hot air balloon. We're going to start by sort of being up there, but still judging and still being attached. And then we're going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until we're really here observing this. And there's no attachment to this character called me any longer. I'm simply observing the play that's going on. That's when the real experience of total non-judgment and just observation takes place. But even that's a process to come to the point where I'm really completely detached from it. And Jason, back to your question before, when I'm really over here, then this just is now, it's like watching somebody else in a movie and you're not part of it any longer. Somebody else started to say something. Did you have something else you want to add? Nope. Anybody else?
Well, no, the process is the analyzing or looking at. Looking at it differently. That's what we do until we
don't. Yeah. Okay. All right. We are going to go back to paragraph 8 on whatever page that is. Does anybody remember what page is? 586 or somewhere around there. Paragraph 8. All right, and I'm going to start again because we haven't gotten very far. The world that demonstrates an ancient truth, you will believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them. So literally, anything, everything that the world presents to you could be seen through this line. I think the coronavirus is doing this to me. I think that person fired me. I think, that person looked at me funny. I think, and remember there's an I to all of those, which is a good indication you're identified with the ego or the body to begin with. But if I'm not the body, if I'm not this character, how could any of those things affect me? We started reading the section about I'm the hero of the dream. Body is the central figure in a dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it. Well, guess what? Main character, me, I, body, hero. Okay? But once deluded into blaming them, you will not see the cause of what they do because you want the guilt to rest in them. I don't want to be identified with the fact that I chose for the ego. I want them to be the problem so I can maintain my separateness and blame them and play the part of an innocent victim. So my entire life has been making sure they know that they're wrong so that I can be right. And it can be in subtle ways, it can be in major ways, it doesn't matter. And it can be, you can be a real aggressive person with doing that, or you can be a very subdued, quiet little character doing that. But the game is being played. And then, in the dream, there's literally bazillions of ways that this game can be played out. None of which take us back to the original cause, because we've decided to play in the effect and blame the effect on something else when they have nothing to do with me losing my peace. And if we put Jesus on the cross in the middle here, as this story goes, didn't matter what any of the things that occurred around him, he remained in his right mind, so nothing that was happening to him as the character or the body affected him, and he could remain totally in a presence of love because he wasn't affected any longer by anything that the dream had to say. And that's what he's asking us to come to step into play with. And Ken was really cute. He used to tell a story that, when we're little, when we're starting out with this process, Jesus comes and gives us a glass of warm milk, and he tucks us in, and he gives us a kiss, and, takes good care of us. But eventually he wants us to get out of bed and walk with him. We all have the capacity to live here, but we have to go through the process of starting with what's going on here and recognize how quickly and how easily I'm pulled into, this ain't right, that's not right, how dare you do this, why are you doing that, why can't you stop doing that so I could be okay? When nothing, no matter how you would present this storyline, no matter how many vision boards you would produce within the context of this, you're not going to find the answer you're looking within the bubble of the ego, illusion, or dream, because it doesn't live there. And no matter how hard we try to make it live here and try to fix and manipulate the world, it still doesn't live here. It requires us to drop the investment in this to find out where it does live when we're ready. And, to the degree we're too afraid to even examine that, or somebody just mentioned, if I'm not ready to look at it, then it's not available to me. And Ken, would say, and the Course says as well, this is a course in recognizing you're not mindless. In this bubble, you're mindless. We're becoming aware we have another choice. Even if I'm not ready to choose it, I now know it's available. And as I keep understanding and I keep being affected by things of the world that disturb my peace and I can't fix on my own, that's when, as Helene mentioned, I can, wash my hands of all investment and thinking I know anything about this. And those are the moments that we can really connect with what this is. But as long as we delude ourselves into blaming someone outside of ourselves, it's never going to happen. It's never going to be healed. It can't be. How childish is the petulant device to keep your innocence by pushing guilt outside yourself, but never letting go. So we keep the guilt in our mind, but we project it into the world, and then we play the part of an innocent victim. And here I could write the word innocent victim on there as well, because it's the same deal. So we're going to go real quickly to workbook number 199. And this lesson is kind of sweet. It starts with the title, I am the Holy Son of God himself. And Jesus would tell us over and over and over, yes, you are the Holy Son of God. That's who you are. You can't be anything else other than that. So we're just going to read the first couple of paragraphs. Here is your declaration of release from bondage of the world. But how do I release from the bondage of the world? Is to choose for this. And here as well is all the world released. It's released because I've let go of the bondage that I've chosen to hold on to. You do not see what you have done by giving to the world the role of jailer to the Son of God. We not only gave the role of the jailer to all the other sons of God, but we've given it to ourselves too, because in order to fix the world in any way, I have to play the part of an innocent victim and make somebody else the guilty party. The sweet potato squeezer. What could it be but vicious and afraid, fearful of shadows, punitive and wild, lacking all reason, blind, insane with hate? So he's trying to describe what we bought by choosing to pay the price of being the innocent victim. Not a very good deal. We thought it was, because I don't have to believe in the guilt, sin, and fear in my mind. I washed that away when I left it back there. But instead, I get all this constant terror, fear, attack, waiting for the next thing to show up to disturb my peace. Paragraph 2, what have you done that this should be your world? What have you done that this is what you see? Deny your own identity, and this is what remains. We denied our own reality. We were at one with God, aligned with everything that God was. We denied that identity. We took on our own identity of, I want to be in control. I want to be special. I want to be an individual. You look on chaos. Proclaim it is yourself. There is no sight that fails to witness this to you. There is no sound that does not speak of frailty. There is no sound that does not speak of frailty within you and without. No breath you draw that does not seem to bring you near death. No hope you hold, but will dissolve in fears. So again, the whole world, the whole bubble, the whole illusion is based on the belief of death. And we're going to eventually, could be today, could be tomorrow, but it's going to end that way because we believe in a bubble that says death is real. Paragraph 3, deny your own identity and you will not escape the madness which induced this weird, unnatural, and ghostly thought that mocks creation and laughs at God. Why does it mock creation and laugh at God? Because we chose a world in opposition to what our true identity and what God really is. And we say, isn't this wonderful? Look what I made, Mom. It's not wonderful. And so much of what the process of the course is to help us understand we made a wrong choice, a choice that isn't going to bring us love. And when we get tired of this choice, we get tired of the effects of this choice, and we start to trust that maybe if I choose for this, I'll be taken to an experience beyond what I've believed. That's when we start to do the work. Deny your own identity and look on evil, sin, and death. Watch despair snatch from your fingers every scrap of hope, leaving nothing but the wish to die. That's pretty brutal, guys. That's brutal, brutal, brutal. But the good news on the next paragraph, he lightens it up a little bit. Yet what is it except a game you play in which identity can be denied? You are as God created you. All else but this is one thing is folly to believe. So he's trying to help us understand we chose something that is never, ever, ever, ever going to be anything than what it is, which is a belief in guilt, sin, and fear projected out, where there's going to be things and people and characters and situations that are going to make it appear you're an innocent victim of circumstances beyond your control. But it's all a contrived story to hide the belief that you separated from God and that you've taken the reality. It really happened versus it never happened. And as we begin to focus on the choice that led to the effect of the separation and understand the only way to undo it is to choose again, then something will begin to happen that will bring us to our truth, to our reality, and our understanding of who we are. But as long as we're playing in the dream, we're just going to be chasing our tail over and over and over. And Jesus would say, continue to chase your tail. We're all going to continue to chase our tail because we're too afraid of this. That this dream is our security blanket. But as it begins to dawn on us what this security blanket really represents, this is not our salvation. And making my brother is not going to ever bring me peace. You know, we've all heard stories in the news of people who, you know, perhaps their child was harmed and killed or whatever, and all they want to do is make sure that they get that person in jail. Make sure they prove that that was the person that's guilty. And then it finally happens, and they're still not at peace. The answer doesn't lie in making somebody else wrong, even if in that case that person is wrong. Because the problem isn't the world. The problem isn't the people and the situations in the world. The problem is the mind that chose to separate and then use this as a camouflage to keep us from remembering the problem in the first place. Anybody have a comment before we go on? That really blew you away, eh? Okay, so we're back to paragraph 8. All right, it is not easy to perceive the just when all around you do your eyes behold its heavy consequences. And I'm just going to stop there. What Jesus is saying is, it's hard to laugh this away when we see the seriousness of what's going on in this illusion. You know, we know people are dying from the coronavirus. We know there's people in the world that are in pain and suffering. And as Bob said, even when you get the new speakers that sound fabulous the first couple days, or you buy a new chair and every time you walk by it, you go, oh, isn't that nice? And then 2 weeks later, you don't even notice it any longer. Those are all the things that we hold firm as our reality and our experience in this world. But it's hard to laugh those away. It's impossible to laugh those away if I'm identified within the context of the illusion. And that's why when we can drop the illusion and choose this, we see the illusion from a higher perspective and a deeper understanding that this is just a silly bubble. It's not our true identity. This is not who we are. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to read the beginning of that again. It is not easy to perceive the just when all around you do your eyes behold its heavy consequences, but without their trifling cause. So in other words, if I don't know what the cause is, I'm going to be stuck in this, thinking that this is what the problem is, and I'm truly an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control within the context of this dream. No question about it, within the context of the dream, when that's all you can see, everything does feel like I'm an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. But as Rose said earlier, if we understand, there's nothing in this dream that was not contrived out of the thought system of the ego. And whether it's me or it's something else, it's all coming from the sick mind that believes it's separated. And be very aware that the Course always addresses the concept of it seems like you believe that. but nothing has ever been affected by what we are and who we are. This is just the camouflage that we've honed into and spent most of our time focusing on. And he's asking us to, maybe there's another way. Let's look at that, the sweet potato pincher. Maybe there's another way of looking at him.
Marianne?
Yes.
It's like, I am the sweet potato pincher. I am also the sweet potato. I am also the hero of the dream. I am the cashier and the other shoppers, and I am everything that's in that particular scene. I'm the guy with his knee on my brother's neck. I'm the bystanders. I'm the press. I'm the protesters. I am the man gasping for breath. And I have to own all of it.
Absolutely correct. And literally, just as if you go to a psychotherapist and they start working on dream interpretation, we know within the context of the dream, every single character is you. It's all coming from your mind. Well, guess what? Just as Helene was saying, every single one of those characters, every single one of those issues and situations are coming from your mind. Nobody else is having the identical circumstances and experiences you are having, despite the fact that there are some overrides from other people in the world. Like we all look at a tree and we all see a tree, but we all can look at that tree and have a different experience from that tree. And again, that's why we're being asked to look. Use your world. And again, back to Jason's questions, use your world, because your world is telling you a story about what's going on in your mind. And if I avoid using that story, I'm avoiding the very classrooms that can take me home. And it's not easy to look. I mean, let's face it, guys, it's not easy to look. It's not easy to own that I'm the one that chose this, and this is an effect of the choice I made. Who wants to go there? It's much more fun to blame it on somebody else, even if I'm starting to understand that's not really working very well. I'm used to that finger pointed out there. And I certainly don't want to think that I was the one that chose to separate from the love of God and kill off God so that I can exist. And so we play the party, we play the game until we don't need to play the game any longer. But we play hard. All right, so without the cause, do its effects seem serious and sad indeed? So if you didn't understand, and most of us don't, that the cause that put this effect into place is where the problem lies. The effect is nothing. But if I don't get that, the effect seems very sad. There's so many storylines that we can contrive within the concept of the story of the illusion. They're almost endless, right? And how many ways can we get sucked into the endlessness of the dream? But they're always going to be an effect, not a cause. The effect is this, cause is that. Yet they but follow. In other words, the cause brings the effect. And it is their cause that follows nothing, but is a jest. And what he's saying by that is, nothing happened. You think something happened. You think it's real, but nothing happened. And that's the only answer Jesus ever has for us. No matter how solid, no matter how deeply enmeshed in the illusion you believe you are, nothing really happened. Nothing. And we don't believe that yet. So we don't see the world as just. We see the world as very solid, very real, very important, very valuable, very irritating, very upsetting, you name it, the world is. Okay, so anybody have any comments before we go to the next paragraph?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
That when we see stuff in the world, the stuff that upsets us is ours.
Yes.
The stuff that does not upset us is not ours.
Well, technically, Bob, literally everything in the world is yours because it's coming from your mind. But what we need to hone in on are the things that upset us, because those are the ones that still have the hooks that keep us stuck within the illusion.
Right, and that's the thing that you need to atone for or take to with Jesus.
Right, absolutely, yes. And there's plenty of those to go around. So we got plenty of work there. Right. Anybody else? All right. So paragraph 9. In gentle laughter does the Holy Spirit perceive the cause and looks not to effects. How else, and I'm going to read the paragraph and then we'll go line by line. How could he correct your error? Who could overlook, who have overlooked the cause entirely? He bids you bring each terrible effect to him that you may look together on its foolish cause and laugh with him a while. You judge effects, but he has judged their cause, and by his judgment are effects removed. Perhaps you come in tears, but hear him say, my brother, Holy Son of God, behold your idle dreams in which this could occur. And who will leave the holy instant with your laughter and your brothers joined with his? So that first line says, in gentle laughter does the Holy Spirit perceive the cause and looks not to effects. Well, the Holy Spirit looks onto the cause, which is the belief in separation, and knows it's not real. He doesn't have a problem with it. He knows it's not real. The problem lies in the belief that we believe it's real. And then because we believe it's real, we project it into the effect of the world, and we spend all our time and effort and energy and focus on the effect, never realizing what the cause is.
But it's only real because we believe it's real.
It's only real because we believe and invest in the reality.
It's not real.
Correct. How else could he correct our errors who have overlooked the cause entirely? Well, we've overlooked the cause and we spend all our time in the effect. Well, first of all, he knows the cause isn't real, and absolutely the effect of a cause that isn't real either. And that's why he specifically says throughout the course, don't bring your problems to me. I don't even know you have problems. And I can't fix your problems because the problems that you believe you have aren't the problem that's really going on. The problem is you believe you separated. The problem isn't you stubbed your toe or you're having trouble with this or that or whatever, or somebody did something to you. The problem is you believe in separation that brought forth this effect that we got stuck in and we spent all our time, energy, and effort trying to fix. He bids you bring each terrible effect to him that you may look together on their cause. Not that they could be fixed, but that we could realize what the cause of them are. You know, again, if you're analyzing your nighttime dream, we can talk about all the aspects of the dream, but the problem really isn't all the aspect, it's the fact that you're still dreaming. And we started out weeks ago talking about the idea of, in the Bible, it says that Adam fell asleep, and nowhere does it say that he woke up. We're enmeshed in his dream, and we're all focused on what's going on in the dream. He's all focused on wake up from the dream, silly dudes. Come back home. Remember who you really are. But we go, but wait a minute, let me fix this little corner of my dream first, and then I'll come and visit. When in truth, we can drop the dream and reconnect anytime we want. But we're so enmeshed in the dream, we're too panicked to let go of it. You judge effects, but he has judged their cause. And again, the only thing he judges is he knows it's not real. He knows you're the Holy Son of God. You've always been the Holy Son of God, and you'll never be anything but the Holy Son of God. But I believe I'm the hero of a dream I made up to hide the guilt, sin, and fear that I harbor in my mind, and then blame it on something or someone outside of me. And by his judgment are effects removed. And again, whatever his judgments, nothing happened. His judgments aren't like the Bible talks about, that when the judgment day comes, you're going to have to repent all your sins and all that kind of stuff. Nothing happened. How could we need any of that? The only thing that needs to be aware of is that it's a dream that I can now wake up from. And I want to find out who I really am. And when I really want to know, and as the Course says, if you really want only peace, it would be yours. But we don't want just peace. We want something within the illusion to get fixed so I could be a little bit more okay. That's not where the answer lies. And as, you know, again, with Bob's example of the speakers, yeah, I got a set of speakers. Man, they're 3 times bigger than the last one. And man, I can hear so clearly, and it's beautiful. But it's really nothing. Within the dream, or the context of the dream, it's a little more fun for a few minutes. But what do I really have? I really don't have anything that I didn't have before, because I'm still stuck in the dream. And I know someone mentioned a week or two ago about how the things that are good in the world draw that person into the identification with the world, even sometimes more than some of the good things. And yeah, that's absolutely correct, because I think I've got something. The hero of the dream now has more money, or the hero of the dream has, you know, better speakers or better furniture or better car. And wow, look at me, aren't I cool? But we really don't have what we're being, you know, shown is available to us. We got a little, you know, I'm still in prison, but I just painted my walls a pretty color and I like them better. And then I compare my walls to the person next to me who still has gray walls, and I go, oh, my walls are better than your walls are. So even in the context of being in jail, where it's always a comparison thing. Mine's better than yours, or mine's worse than yours. And it doesn't matter which road we walk. Either way, it's the same thing. I'm special or different from you. And within the context of the illusion, that's the main focal point. Kill or be killed, I'm the main one. You don't see one of these characters being the hero of my dream. Heck no, I'm the hero of my dream. One of these characters has their own dream, of which their center focal point is the hero of the dream of which they are. All right. So again, he bids you bring each terrible effect to him, that you may look together on its foolish cause and laugh with him a while. And that's a little bit like what Helene was talking about, bringing our stuff to the altar. Bring what you think you still value. And I shouldn't say bring what you think you still value. Bring what you value in the world still. Bring that to the altar and say, this I still value. And that doesn't matter if it's a piece of furniture, your car, or it's I'm right in this circumstance. I know the guy that was squeezing those darn sweet potatoes isn't the one. I know better than he does. Do you? Do we really? Do we even know what the problem is so I can fix it and change it? And again, what Jesus is trying to introduce us, especially in some of those workbooks at the beginning. No, you don't. You haven't got a clue. How could you possibly fix something that you don't even know what's broken? I can think I know how to fix the things that are broken within the context of my limited understanding. But how many times have even those failed? You fix something, it gets, you know, it's a little bit better, but then it falls apart again. Because what we're trying to fix is a world that is constantly falling apart, because it's made of something other than love. Made of something other than eternity, oneness, completeness. You judge effects, but he has judged their cause. And again, cause, not effect. We think we're the cause. I've got some say in this. I'm in control. We don't. We're simply an effect. We're simply the puppet being operated by the thought system that's been put into place. I think I have control. I think I have importance, value, you name it. I'm just a wooden puppet being directed by the strings of whichever puppeteer is operating me. And the more we can understand that, and the more we become aware that when I'm being operated by the puppet of the ego, it's not really a real good deal. I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get when I made that initial choice to be separate, different, and individual from God. I thought I was going to be able to take that with me and bring the love along. Whoops! But all I got to do was take that concept of being an individual and special with me but at a loss of love and as a purchase of guilt, sin, and fear, death, and separation. And I didn't realize that was coming with the package. You know, and fine letters or small letters, when you buy something, sometimes it doesn't tell you the whole story to get the package. Well, we've spent a whole lot of time trying to manipulate the package and make it a little bit better. And this course is saying, sorry guys, you can manipulate all you want. It's never going to get better because it doesn't have the capacity to get better. But boy, will we try hard. Perhaps you come with tears, and boy, how many times are we going to come with tears? Because this is rough. You know, I literally have identified with this character, the hero. I think that's what I am. I believe with my total, complete essence, that's who I am. And you're going to tear my robot apart and tell me this isn't who I am and what I am? How could we not come with tears when that's what we're up against? But hear him say, my brother, Holy Son of God, behold your idle dream in which this could occur. So he's trying to help us understand this is a silly, idle dream. And just like at night, you're going to wake up from your dream, and sometimes the dreams are good, sometimes the dreams aren't so good. But when you wake up, poof, they're gone. They don't have any effect on you any longer. And someday, the solidity of this dream, which we have the wonderful contribution of our feelings, our hearing, our seeing, our smelling, you know, our emotions that make this seem so solid, so real, so important, so valuable, are just part of the programming of this robot to make it appear that this is our reality. That's not very nice. I mean, we're the ones that did it to ourselves, but boy, you know, talk about the challenge of overcoming that and undoing that. And of course, Jesus would laugh at us if we presented him with those comments, and he would say, ha, you think undoing the process of this dream is hard. He said, hey, look what you did. Look what you pulled off here. And you're going to tell me dropping that and choosing this is hard? Well, it sure is experienced that way from where I'm sitting. I don't know about from where you're sitting. But my brother, Holy Son of God, behold your idle dream in which this could occur. And, you know, that one section in the workbook 191 that I read where it talked about all the stuff we chose when we chose this particular choice of separation. What came with that? And hopefully we're all becoming a little bit more aware and not quite so duped into believing that the dream is an end-all to everything. And the last line, and you will leave the holy instant with your laughter and your brothers joined with you. Because when we really do drop this idle dream and we align with the Holy Spirit, as I said before, you can't leave Hazam, you know what I'm talking about, Hitler or the guy that with the sweet potatoes over here and line up over here. You can't do it. It's impossible. You know, there was a Star Trek episode once where Spock and Kirk left together and transported to another time. And then Spock fell in love with somebody there and he wanted to stay and Kirk was ready to leave. And he tried to go through the transporter to go back and he couldn't leave without Spock because they both came in together. They both had to leave together. And this is not necessarily waiting for your brother to see eye to eye with you in this understanding. It's about you dropping your investment in the belief of the dream. And when you drop your investment in the belief of the dream, you're no longer part of the dream. So you now see the world through the eyes of oneness instead of seeing the eyes through duality.
Yes, but from what I understand, if I understand this right, that you can be in the world and be in your right mind.
Yes.
Which is very rare.
Yes.
And when you're in your right mind, that whatever you say will be exactly what that person has to hear at that time. And that if you are a surgeon or have some job, you'll be able to do that job perfectly. And if your body gets hurt, you will not feel any pain. So.
Yep. And it actually talks about the idea of, the idea that death is not the answer of healing of the mind. But when you heal your mind, your body, for as long as it remains, will be used for the purpose of the highest good.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that, like you said, you wouldn't have the pain. And that doesn't mean the body couldn't be dying from cancer. But you're not going to be affected by your body being dying from cancer. But that purpose of your body could be to assist others who need the lesson of maybe caretaking somebody that has that going on.
Right.
So your investment in your body is no longer connected. It's been disconnected. Your investment is now completely in the acknowledgement of who you really are.
Right.
Which to me sounds a whole lot better than being attached to this, because I'm not having much fun with this myself. Go ahead.
But nobody will be able to tell that you are different from looking at you, because you'll do everything that a person in the world does.
Exactly.
But you're coming from an entirely different place.
Right. And there's a sweet little place, and I believe it's one of the workbook lessons, where it said, what will the teacher of God look like, or something, and it says his brow will be less furrow, and they'll be relaxed and peaceful and calm.
You smile more.
Right, and you'll smile more, and you won't. It's not like you're going to turn into this different person or whatever. You'll look the same, as you said, on the outside, but inside you'll be that calm, peaceful experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yes, I would say. Okay, so I'm going to read the prayer, and then after that I'll unmute you, and if you want to share anything or talk or whatever, we can do that. So if everybody wants to take, I'm going to mute everybody because I think a couple people are on here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so if everybody wants to take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen. And I